master After Effects or Scott Halford. Just kidding. I'm gonna do a little project today that I like to just kind of show one of the things that After Effects can do if you have no other resources but the ones at your fingertips. You can do some pretty cool stuff without having to buy thousands of dollars in plugins, although those do help. So what I did, what we're going to do is create the Earth, and then we're going to do a little sheen around the Earth and add like a sunrise with the lens flare and stuff coming up over the planet Earth. Okay, so we're going to just kind of go through some of that today. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I did a Google image search for world image, and I like this one from Wikipedia. It's nice and big. Or if you want to try one of these different ones, basically you need one of the ones where the Earth is like flattened out and rolled out. So this one wouldn't work because that's kind of trying to maintain its spherical look. This one would probably work pretty good, except for it's kind of a lower resolution. That one's huge. That one's also from Wikipedia. That one's really big. Yeah, those are really big images. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this one. So I'm going to click on that. Right click here, say Save Image As. And then let's pretend this is your drive. I'm just going to call this World Animation. Make a new folder for graphics. And then just call it World. Just whole world. I don't need to have all that. Alright. Now, let's import that into After Effects. So Command I. Go to the desktop. Go to my world animation. Go to graphics. My whole world JPEG. And there it is. Open. Okay. Now, while you guys are still getting your world images, let's go ahead and make a new composition. Now, I'm not working with footage, so I got to start. Now, this is where the education that we've done on frame rates and frame sizes and stuff come into play, because we don't have the benefit of footage that we can just create a composition from. We're creating a composition from nothing now. So I'm going to click on this Create New Composition icon. Now tell me about these settings. Are these good settings to use?
A little too long.
30 seconds? Maybe I'll make this more like 10 seconds. Okay, what about this? We're using a preset right now, HDTV 1080 2997. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
If that's what you want. So it's like, but if you're doing it for like standard definition or DV or something like that, then you'd want to use one of the DV presets. But yeah, this is good. I usually like working in 24 frames, like 2398 or 23976. But since this is going to just be animation, I'm not going to be putting it with any footage that I shot. I can go ahead and leave it at 2997, or I can make it 23976 because I like it. So I'm gonna use 23976. You can use 2997 if you want. And I'm gonna call this one Sunrise. Click OK. And now first thing I'm going to do to create one part of this world animation is drag the JPEG, the world map, into my timeline. Now this image is going to be huge. Check out how huge that is. That's just really big. And now onto this layer, I'm going to add. That image is just way too big. Actually, I'm going to reveal that in Finder. Open it up in Photoshop.
Mine goes was
I'm just
2,000 by 1,000 and it's
2,000 by 1,000 is good.
the same one you have. You just picked the wrong one.
Yeah, mine's really big.
You should just pick the right one.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do something really simple. I'm just gonna change the image size. Just make this like 3,000 pixels. That'll be better. Okay. Save that. That's fine. There, it updated in After Effects automatically. Sorry, what?
How big did you make it?
I made mine 3,000 pixels wide. Anything over 4,000 starts to get kind of hard for After Effects to process really well. So unless you really need the resolution, I would say to size it down to less than 4,000 pixels in either direction. Alright, now I'm going to add the effect CC Sphere. So if I start typing in sphere into my effects panel, then I got CC Sphere there. If I drop that onto the JPEG, well bam, we have the planet Earth. So now you can change the radius of this to make the Earth bigger or smaller. There's lots of other really cool things you can do here. You can rotate it in any direction, so you can change the x-axis here a little bit, so you can, you know, set it on its, what is it, 15 degrees? What does the Earth rotate at, like sideways, like 15 or something? And then you can use the Y rotation to have it rotate around like this, like the planet Earth. There it is. Ooh. Now this is a pseudo 3D object. Okay, it's rendering in. You can look at it like it's a 3D object, but it's not actually a 3D object. It's still a two-dimensional layer in your panel. See, I can grab it and move it around now. I can scale it. You know, and if I were to turn this into a 3D layer and then rotate it, it would flatten out. See that? So in order for this to maintain its appearance of being 3D, if you want to rotate it, you have to use the rotation settings within the effect. And you can change other things like, you know, how bright the light is. So you can make it, you know, the make-believe light, change the height of it. You know, so if you want to make it look like the sun's coming up over the Earth, this is the setting you change. Okay? That's just the light height. And then the light direction if you want it to be up higher. Now the sun doesn't come up in that direction. It would come up in that direction. And then it would come around this way. Okay, so we're going to mess with that in just a minute. If I want to see what this looks like without the black background and see my planet Earth, there it is. Okay, so it's a very defined sphere. Now I'm going to add a couple more layers. I'm going to add, I'm going to create an eclipse type of thing to create like a sheen that can go around the side of the world as the sun is rising up and over. Okay, and then we're going to use a lens flare to make make it look like the sun. So to create an eclipse type of effect, what happens when you have an eclipse? Either of the sun or of the moon.
Shadow of the Earth passes over that.
Yeah, so the shadow of the Earth is being cast onto the moon, or the moon is covering up the sun. The sun, the moon, and the Earth are all spheres. They're all circles. So if we pass one circle that's slightly bigger than another circle in front, then you can create that same kind of effect. So I'm going to create two solids, one white and one black, and then I'm going to make spheres out of them, or make circles out of them. Okay, so new, solid. I'm going to make this one white. Click OK. And then I'm going to right click in here, create new, solid. Make this one black. Okay, so now on the black solid, check out one cool, actually I might be lying to you here. Yeah, okay. So with my ellipse tool and my black solid layer selected in my timeline, if I start dragging this down, I'm creating kind of an oblong shape. I want to make that perfectly spherical. So in order to constrain proportions, I hold down Shift while I drag my mouse down this way to make a perfectly round circle. And if I want to adjust it sideways like this while I've still got my mouse clicked, I'm holding down my mouse, if I just put my thumb on the keyboard or on the space bar, it will allow me to move it around and adjust it as I'm making the sphere. Okay, so now I let go and there's my black sphere. Now I want this same mask to go on the white solid. How do I do that?
You just copy and paste the mask onto it.
Yeah, so if I select the mask here in the timeline, hit Command C, go down to the white solid, hit Command V, I pasted that same mask onto the white solid. So now I've got a black solid, or a black circle covering a white circle. Alright, let me turn off my transparency again. As you can see, we got this very faint white line. So if I take my position settings of this black layer and just kind of drag it off to the side, check out what happens. There's my eclipse looking thing. Now one thing I'm going to do to make this a little bit larger than life is I'm going to take the scale of this black one and I'm going to put it at 99%. What that'll do is it'll actually wrap that around farther than what nature would. But this is animation, you know. It's like so we can do whatever we want. Like nature doesn't matter. All right. So let's say I'm going to have the sun come up over the left side of the planet. So if I start with my scale, if I actually start with my scale at more like 101, then I can cover that entire white solid up. Okay, now I'm going to add a keyframe to the scale. So I'm going to have it start at 101 and then in maybe like 3 seconds or maybe 2 seconds, have it go to 98, 99, or 98 like I did before. Now I need to add some position keyframes. So I'm going to have it begin here because it's covering that white solid up completely. And then over the 10 seconds of this animation, I'm gonna choose how far I want that to go. Maybe right there. So it starts out here. Maybe if I use both of those all the way, go like this. That's cool. Now it's really crawling around. Okay, so I put my scale and my position position settings at the same place. Is that all making sense so far? No?
I'm nowhere near where you are, so I have no idea what's going on. I'll just watch your video.
Okay. Okay, so we've got that happening. Another thing we could do possibly is over time, if you hit F for feather, mask feather, you can add some feather to the mask on these white and black solids. Now, I want to make sure that this black solid is covering up the white solid, and I want it to start out so that it's really this really crisp line. But over time, as the sun grows bigger and bigger, you might want that line to get a little bit softer. And the way you do that is by adding feather to your masks. So if I select both these layers and hit F for feather, it brings up mask feather. And I can keyframe the feather of the mask. So at the beginning, I'm gonna put both of them at, leave both of them at 0 because I want it to be nice and crisp. And then at 10 seconds, I'm going to feather this to my liking. I actually am doing the inside one, the black one, at a higher feather than the other, because I think I like the way that looks. It kind of makes it look like there's a little bit of fall off from the light on the edge. Okay. All right, so that's pretty fun, right? Let's take our whole world JPEG layer with the world on it, put it above, and let's match up the size of this thing. Right now my scale is like 70%, so I can just bring my scale up and match that world here to this edge. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered because really this highlight is going to go above the earth, is going to go above our world. And to do that, I want this to be able to show the planet underneath it, but right now I've got a black solid covering a white solid. So right now I'm going to take the black solid and the white solid and pre-compose them. And the key command for that is Command-Shift-C, turning it into a pre-comp. And I'm just going to call this shine. Hit OK. Now, even though it's still technically a solid covering the other one, this is where I'm going to use a transfer mode. And I'm going to click on Toggle Switches Modes button down here in the bottom of my timeline. And under the mode for the shine, I'm going to give this one of the anything underneath this Add Lighten screen. I'm going to use Add, and that'll add that sheen to the top of my planet. So check that out now. Okay, now let's coordinate the light on the Earth with the light that's coming around with that sheen. Okay. So if I click on my world layer and go to the beginning, I want to move the light height off so that you can't see any light at all. And I might want to raise the direction up this way a little bit more, simply because that's where the sheen is starting. And I'm going to just move this right off. Now I can add keyframes to both of those. I can even add a keyframe to the light intensity, and maybe I'll do that. So add light height, light direction, and light intensity. And now I'm going to move forward to about where I want that sun to really just break over the planet. Maybe go to right here. Okay. And then I'll move it faster for the end of it so that we can really reveal the Earth. And then over that last 6 seconds for the shine layer, because once the sun kind of separates from the Earth, you don't need that shimmer anymore. So I'm going to take the transparency settings of the shine T for transparency, and then over this amount of time drop that down to 0 so it goes away. Alright, what's one last thing you'd probably want to do to this? You want to rotate the Earth a little, wouldn't you? There's like 6 hours going by here. So I'm just gonna go to the middle here, uncover, go to the world. Go to the Y rotation, add a keyframe. Hit U to uncover keyframes. And then move this back to the beginning. Change the setting here till I like it. And then move that keyframe to the back. Now let me just preview this animation real quick. So is that alright for you guys? Do you like that enough? I might just... I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as it is right now. Alright, now let's... do you guys want to do the lens flare off the sun, or do you want to try and create the sun first? See, the sun is going to be another solid layer, so let's just do that one. Let's actually put this one in the shine. Add this to the shine. So I'm going to start just by bringing my white solid that's up in my project panel. I'm going to bring that down and make just like a second white solid, and do another ellipse tool. And have this be the sun coming up over the Earth. I'm going to feather this a whole bunch. And then I'm going to drop it down back behind both of these layers. Now there's a lot of things you can do. You know, when the sun's depicted as coming over the Earth, usually it's like, you know, as you drag this behind here, it can kind of be this thing kind of peeking up over this way. Ring, and then the flare gets really big, and then this light kind of spreads around this way until the sun comes up and separates itself. So we can do this in 2 parts. I'm going to start by just having the sun start right there so that you can barely see it. And then use my position keyframes over the 10 seconds to move it out this way. I can already tell you there's going to be a problem with this because I'm using transparency settings to get rid of these layers. So maybe what I would want to do is just change the white layer to have the transparency settings go away at the right time, because that's going to make my sun disappear. I just thought of that. So anyway, here we go. Sun's coming up over the planet here. And now maybe what I'll do that I've got that is duplicate my sun layer and animate my mask. So if I go up and select my mask and hit any of my anchor points on my mask and hit Command A, it'll select all of it. And then if I hit Command T, I can transform it. So I'm going to transform it so that my apex of this thing will be about right here. Hit enter, and then I can go in and use my pen tool, or my pen tool or my selection tool to tweak this mask even more. So it looks like that's really just kind of wrapping around the planet here. Now if I drop the transparency of this down, maybe add a whole bunch more feather to this one, drop the transparency down, and I've got two lighting effects coming off the sun here. Now what I want to do is, as this sun's coming up and over, I want to animate this mask so that it doesn't just like lift up off the planet like that, because that's kind of awkward looking. So I want it to start right here and go to M for mask. Maybe I'll just change my position settings for this one. Whoop. Take the first position of this, bring it down here a little bit, and then as it's rising up and it gets almost off the planet, bring it up to here. Maybe we can just like tweak this and wrap this around here farther. Did I hit M for mask position? Oh, dang it, I didn't change my mask path. Alright, I gotta add keyframes for my mask path because I didn't do it already. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's too big. Okay, so I'm gonna go right here. Put my mask back down to that smaller setting that I had it. Now let it wrap around. And then as soon as that sun starts letting go of the planet, I'll take my mask path there and go back to here to like 7.5 seconds when it's really gone from the planet, and just pull it back this way. And then I can end the layer there, because once it's back behind the planet, it doesn't need to be seen anymore. So let me take a look at this and see how good that looks to me. Alright, maybe I'll just make these go a little bit earlier. Add some easing. There. Alright, cool. I think I like that right now. Let me go up to my sunrise layer here. I'm going to go to 6 seconds, borrow these keyframes, delete them, paste them onto my white layer here. And now let that white layer go away, but not my sun. There. Alright, now we need to use this black solid for some things. We're gonna, let me bring this black solid down. I'm gonna add a lens flare to this. type in flare, lens flare, there it is. Now there are other lens flares that you can get, optical flares from Video Copilot. It's really cool. Sapphire makes really awesome flares. And like the biggest key to those flares is they allow you to get rid of some of these rings. You know, you could use the flare to be a light coming up over the back of the planet. Like this is basically my white solid with the feather, you know, coming up and over the planet. Problem with this is I can't get rid of these rings, and you wouldn't really see these lens rings until the sun were actually in the lens. So we want to wait until the sun is up over the planet until we see that. So that's why this extra white solid to be the sun is being used the way it is. So I'm going to put this layer on the very top, and then use the transfer mode add once again. And then I'm going to put the lens flare using the flare effect. I'm going to put the flare center right in the middle of that sunlight. Okay, look how cool that just made that look. Because it's not only doing adding to, it's adding to everything. So this is the flare by itself, and then it's adding to the sheen around the planet and the sunlight. And you can change this lens flare to something different, like a 35mm prime or 105mm prime, as you like. I actually kind of like the 105mm prime, so I'm going to use that one. And then what I want to do is have the flare center follow the center of my sun rising up and over. So the best way to do that would be to solo the flare and solo the sunrise. And then for my keyframes for my flare center, add a keyframe everywhere there's a position to that top white solid. So I'm going to open up my P settings, my position settings, and place the flare center right in the middle of that sun. And then go to the end and put it right in the middle of the sun again. It makes it a little bit more sun-ish. Cool. So do we like that? Moving up that way. It's pretty cool. Let's unsolo these two layers now so I can see everything. Now let's look at that flare center. I don't want to be able to see that flare center start to flare up until that sun's about to start coming out from behind the planet. So if I go to flare brightness on that keyframe right there and turn this down to 0, I won't see that flare. Now I want to just go forward enough frames to be able to see that flare center, and I'm going to turn that back up to 100. Now if I go back to the beginning and preview the animation, check out what happens. So is that pretty nifty? What's this little thing here? That's that layer. Okay. The edge of my white solid here is off the edge, is like not even with the edge of the screen. And this lens flare is adding to it. So it's creating a little bit of a problem for me. It's showing me the edge of the layer, and I don't want to see the edge of the layer. So I need to move this layer behind the mask without moving the position of the mask. And the way to do that is use your Y tool, the move behind tool, the move behind tool, and I can actually drag that up without moving the position of the mask. Okay. Now, as the sun kind of gets up off the planet and it's not so extreme in our eyes, we could probably, from about 5 seconds to 10 seconds, take the flare brightness and bring it down just a little bit so that it's not quite that bright. There, that looks good to me. All right, now let's take a look at it here. Okay, whenever you see the sun depicted in the movies, is it white? No, it's not white. So there's a couple different filters you can use. You can use the tint filter, or you can use the colorize filter. So I'm going to use the colorize filter. I think. These are presets. Let's see. All right, let me just use the tint filter. And I can add some tint to this. So I can map the white, instead of it being totally white, I can make it more yellow like the sun is. And I only need to set the white because that's what is being affected here. And then you can change how much that's being affected so that you can kind of get back some of your blue colors in your lens flare and stuff, so it doesn't have to cover it completely up. But it's still kind of based on more of a yellow color. All right, now I'm going to do one more thing. I'm not going to just let this stay here. I mean, Universal Pictures doesn't just stay there, right? You got to make it look like the camera's coming up and around the planet as the sun rises. So to move all of this stuff around, I can either use a null object, or to move both of these together, I could use one of them and have one of them be the child of the other. Use a parent-child relationship. But just for the heck of it, I'm going to make a null object and use the null object to animate both of these. Now I want the sun to be the point of interest, so I'm going to use this as my point of interest at the beginning. And knowing that this is where I want it to end, I'm going to set some position. I'm going to set like my position, rotation, scale. I'm going to set keyframes right there at roughly 5.5 seconds, because that's where I want it to end. Now I can go to the beginning and screw it up all I want, because I know at least it'll end right. So I'm going to put this in the center. Oops, what did I do wrong there? I need to make the whole world and the shine use that parent pick whip and tell them to follow the null object. Okay, now when I drag the null object over here, I can drag it over there, rotate it a little bit, scale it up. And now I'm going to tell this to continually rasterize the previous layer. That world is going to do what it's going to do. And then I'm going to go into my shine layer and just tell all these layers to continually rasterize also, so they can be redrawn. Now if I go to my sunrise layer, it'll be more crisp. There we go. And of course, I want to ease all these out, and then ease all these in. Oh, that screwed up my lens flare. I'm going to have to fix that. All right. And then a lot more tweaking and stuff will help this be even better. Let's see. I'm gonna undo, like on the lens flare layer, I'm gonna take off the continually or the redraw option on that one because I think that was what was screwing me up. Yep, it was. Now my problem here is I got this edge of this coming off of here because of the lens flare. But have no fear. I'll just take the position settings of this null object and I'll have it curve around. Curve into place. And then I'm going to go into my graph editor and really make these last three ease into place. And I moved all these over to 7 seconds just to see what it would look like. Now the sun looks like it's rising really fast because we're actually coming around the planet physically, like we're looking around the planet at the sun rather than just the sun rising really fast. Still, I mean, you'd have to be moving really fast in order for it to, because, Universal Studios zips around the planet that fast. Why can't we? I've got some weirdness going on with my little glow around this side. See that little extra flare up? I think I want this shine to be done fading out by the time that sun isn't touching it anymore. So yeah, I like that better. Whoa, now it's doing something weird again. Oh. I think that's this layer screwing me up still. Oh, it totally is. See, I accidentally added a keyframe in there. That's what that is. Let's get rid of that keyframe. And then pull this back down here. And then I'm going to add some I'm going to just copy these transparency settings onto that one so it can be gone too. Alright, so many little things you can just tweak all the time. Now if you want to, I suppose you could take the world, add a position keyframe to this, and have it look like it's separating even more. So now if I wanted to get really picky, I would probably put that lens flare in this composition, because if you look at it, the way these orbs, the lens orbs, are coming into the picture, they're like rotating with the picture rather than doing the parallax thing when a lens flare moves off to the side. But then I would have to, go into all of these settings and make sure that the lens flare was following that white all the time. So a little bit, maybe a little motion tracking, I don't know. But yeah, that's what you'd have to do. So there's like a quick and fun thing. All right. Was that fun?
Yes.
I'll let you know
Interesting.
after I watch the video.
All right, cool. I'll just leave it at that.
Looks exciting.